Welcome back to Weekend Walkabout in our Gardens and Years virtually, where we're moving into chapter 3 of Simplifying to Keep on Growing. What we have now are tips, which are all included, and more than these are included in the outline that we've got posted for you. If you're live with us now, you can just click the link for downloading that, or you can always go anytime to About Us in our website, webinars and audience notes, and pull them up. We're going to hop and skip through the tips to hit the ones that we think are probably the most timely and best for you of the ones that are that people gave us. But there's lots of tips in the last part of the handout. We call it the devil's in the details. And the one that's most timely and most saving of time is start
early in the spring, work late into the fall.
The earlier,
especially the work late into the fall.
The earlier you start in the spring, the more time you save. Every hour I spend in the garden in the springtime saves me 2 hours in the summertime. It's how it works out when I've kept track in people's gardens. And earlier means when you can walk on the ground with the ground not being too wet. Go out and grab some soil from the garden in your hand, squeeze your hand together in a fist, open your hand. If the soil in your hand, you can poke it and it crumbles pretty easily. It's called friable. Go ahead and work. If it stays together in a clump, put your snowshoes on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spread your weight around.
Spread your weight out. Snowshoes or boards. We've often worked with pieces
laying
of
plywood out.
Yep. And later in the fall, this is Burdette when we were working in the fall, mulch in the fall. I wish that more places kept supplies of mulch on hand.
Yes, they always try to drain it down because they can't store it.
Yeah, because mulch on the garden right after the leaves come down or right before the leaves come down is just the perfect time to mulch. You can plant way late in the year, so start earlier, work later.
And know that if you work later, you're younger, and then in the spring you're older. So work later while you're still younger.
Why didn't I do this last fall when I was younger and in better shape? One of our clients told us. Buy things only when you need them. And this is the hardest thing for us to do.
Oh, that's so hard.
I do not go to the nursery myself anymore, very rarely. I send a list with Steve. I often send the list ahead to a nursery if it's one of our regular suppliers, saying, if you can pull these for me, I'd like it, because otherwise we pick up stuff that we don't need. And I had to say to Roy Clem, the owner of Song Sparrow Nursery, 3rd generation peony grower, gorgeous plants, and we're walking through his nursery together, and he wants to give me things. And I have to say, I'm sorry, Roy. I'm sorry, Roy. Don't give that to me. I don't have a place to put it. It will end up like we often see at people's gardens. These are not planted. Can you see they're all in pots here and here?
In a long, even. Oops, how did I do that?
It's okay, it doesn't matter. We don't want to do this. We don't want to bring things home and water them till they die because we don't have a place for them. Get what you plan to get when you need to get it. Don't irritate everybody by getting more mulch because, gee, it costs $35 more to have it delivered another time. Get little bits. Do what our friend Dennis does and buy it in bags and store the bags. It costs more in bags, but that way you've got it only when you need it.
I don't know what I did to the screen.
Prune harder, less often. If you possibly can, prune harder, less often. I'm going to show you pruning this yew, and I prune it every 2 years. And this is 30 years we've been pruning this way. This year that I'm showing you the pictures, we pruned it in its 3rd year because during its 2nd year, when we should have pruned it, there was scaffolding up working on the building and we couldn't prune it. It started out fuzzy, but still in its shape. And it looks like what you see on the lower right. And I'm pruning each branch where I'm cutting it, just like we showed you earlier with Deb and me shearing. I cut the whole thing back smaller and then thin it. I'm taking out all that you see and leaving it like this. Is it thinner? Can you see through it? Yes, but this is in the fall. You can do it in the fall or the spring before it leaves out. It's going to be fluffy and full because I took out not only the shears where I clipped back, but then I reached in and took thinnings out. So this one that I cut back, what's left on the shrub looks like this.
Just that little bit.
Little bits. And those little bits are what are going to take off and grow and can grow this far and fill in. Prune harder, less often. Don't go out there and prune a hedge 5 times a year. Prune it once. Stop spraying.
Yes.
Just allow nature to let things win. These are pine sawflies. Once you know that they're there and you've learned about them for 1 year, you know they're going to be there the next year. If you really want to do something about them, take your hose. Now this is on spruces, but same thing.
Same technique. Just blast them.
Yeah. In the spring when they're little, blast them down. They don't know how to crawl back to the place where they were laid as an egg. Things on the ground will eat them. And if you don't want to do that, just let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go and decide afterwards whether or not you can live with that plant. Fertilize less often with slow release stuff. Do a soil test once to find out which fertilizer works for your soil. It's not your plants, it's your soil that you need to add the fertilizer for. And use that fertilizer once a year or twice a year in the off season, April or October. The fertilizers like manures, the chicken there, like marine cuisine, which is kelps, blood meal from processing plants, planktone, which is a combination of all kinds of things like feather meal and blood meal. And once you find out which fertilizer is right for your garden, then you can go to our website, you can click and you'll find an Excel spreadsheet where you can put in your kind of fertilizer and your size of garden, and it'll tell you how much you need to put down there. Root barriers.
Oh, they save so much time. They may cost you a little bit to begin with, but
root barriers are
root barrier.
One of your biggest savings, because the edge of the garden is where the outside plants are trying to get in and your inside plants are getting out. Either you have a cut edge, like here at Edinburgh Royal Botanical Gardens, or where we, in our clients' gardens, twice a year at least, you need to slice this edge and take out the rooted pieces that are trying to grow in, and you leave the edge open. You don't bring mulch and stack it up against that edge, because then the roots will grow into the mulch. You leave air, because air is what stops roots. And then you can clean it up through the year. This is Brown here with her long-handled shears. But better to use a hard edge and not this kind of hard edge.
And don't do the rock and the edge.
Yeah. We don't use the metal edges either.
It's got holes in it.
Grass can grow right through the places where the stakes go. Plus, it's a two-person
job. That's good for holding a walk.
Yeah, yeah. What we use is flexible plastic. We buy in a roll that's 27 inches wide, and it's called carpet runner or carpet cover. It's meant to unroll down a hallway where you've got heavy
traffic for years. People put it in the houses.
We buy that roll and we slice it
to the
2 or 3 times so that we get the depth of edge we need. We cut the edge in the garden. The soil is stacked up here. We line that edge with the plastic. Steve puts nails in it. I don't. When it's deep, I just bring the soil.
Just make sure the knobbly side is toward the lawn.
Right.
There's a knobbly side on that.
Yeah. And then we just take the soil and bring it back against it. The edge is there.
The mowers don't lift it up.
Yeah. The grass can, when the mulch builds up, the grass can creep over the top, but you've still got an edge to keep the roots from growing in. We did this to Burdett's garden. This is her peony and iris garden. It's 80 feet long and only 10, 12 feet wide. That's a lot of edge. That's a lot of linear feet of war zone.
Yes.
And she was constantly pulling grass out, quackgrass.
Quackgrass.
Which is a very invasive grass. And I said one year, I said, okay, Burdett, I'm here for the weekend. I'm just going to work in this garden. I'm going to clean the garden out and take the grass out and put an edge in for you. So I took it out. This is the same area.
Cleaned it up.
Cleaned out and put back in again with mulch put on it and an edge in. And 4 years later, with the edge in and Burdett now using straw as her mulch, there's no grass in there. It held the edge well. It took the whole weekend, 2 days work to clean out that 800 square feet. We wrote it up for you. There's an article and it's gardenaz.org. I should have changed that part. But I showed you how we went up to the peonies and took the roots right out all the way. You can also put in an edge that's a hard edge that's nice for a mower to go along with brick, but you still need an edge that keeps the grass from growing between the bricks. So next to that is where you might have that metal edge or a plastic edge.
Yep.
Plants can lap out over the hard edge and your wheel can go along it. If you like to use broken concrete or stone and you like it at the edge of the garden, or you have a lot of it so you want to use it there,
you must leave a gap.
Move it into the garden. Get the visual aesthetic that you're looking for, but leave an edge outside, a no plant zone that you can go and kill that grass with. If you want to use a herbicide, use a herbicide, or Ann used a little mantis tiller and just tilled along the edge. Because
anything, hoe it.
Yeah, because otherwise the weeds get between the plants and you end up having to keep picking up rocks and putting them down. Please don't use rocks on the edge. That's a huge maintenance issue.
Huge.
Establish several places where you can dump stuff on your own property. Behind a bush, several places.
Quick, so you don't have, it's saving your time.
Yep, and they might not be ideal. It's ideal compost place where it's in the sun and where you've got room to move the green stuff and mix it with brown stuff and heap it up. That's ideal compost. We're not worried about ideal compost. We just want some places on your site where you don't have to bag things up, where you can dump them. Don't dump branches. I was always yelling at Burdette. No branches, no woody branches in there. They take years to break down.
They take too long.
But all of your herbaceous stuff can be dumped in a couple of places on the property so that you're not having to bag them up, and you can just keep adding to that. Define your goals to go outside and, like I say, either rope yourself into a place.
For the day. Yeah.
I would leave Brenda notes at Virginia and Al's garden and leave her notes that said, here's what we're doing today. And I'm starring the ones that if you do nothing else, do those.
Do those.
And usually start in places you see the most. Don't work in the far corners of your garden. Start from high visibility areas. And for that matter, have your design make those.
It's high build.
Yeah, that's your high maintenance areas are the places you see the most, because you'll get the most out of doing that work. Plant small.
Water small.
Because the smaller you plant, the less water you need to carry around. That number of annuals and perennials, new ones put in that area there, that takes 1 bucket of water applied to a place where you've planted them with a watering ring. So this tree, I'm going to plant with a watering ring. I've used the sod and stacked it up around the outside, not against the trunk, so that it'll hold water in. I can walk up to that place with 1 bucket of water.
And it's right there.
You know that it's on that root system. And we do that even with little plants. So we walk by with a hose and we go 1, 2, 3, and we know that we've filled up our little watering.
Or our little, I was using gallon buckets going around.
So your highest maintenance areas go closest to wherever you're seeing. This is next to Alan Red's family room where she spent all her time. So this area with the parterre where we planted tulips and then put annuals afterwards, this is our high maintenance area right there where you're spending all your time looking. Further away, we can have space and make a Japanese garden with the low maintenance areas. Yep. Further away, ground covers, rocks,
storytelling,
shrubs,
gardens.
Yep, that was our storytelling Japanese garden. So near the house, outside the window and underneath the Japanese maple, there's a garden at Sue's. But out by the road, it's ground cover and shrubs, burning bush and catmint. And try to remember, as you look at the notes and the other tips that are there, what Bert Crawford, some of you who shopped at Garden Path Nursery for your specialty Japanese growers would remember Bert. Bert said,
your balance goes to hell when you get older.
All gray matter you have left rolls to one side and you tip over. Maybe we like to garden because we're on the ground. We can fall over, but not far.
And that's Bert.
That's Bert, and that's perspective. If you want to read more detail even than what's in the outline, you can go to our website. The interview notes are all there for all of the people. It's at gardenaz.org, webinars, and look for conference materials for that one. Okay, so what do we have? For those of you who need to get out into the garden, we're almost on time today and we can let you go at 10 o'clock. You can hear this recorded. You can hear the questions and answers on the recording if you'd like to later. Let's go.
All right. Yeah, unfortunately, sorry, my dog started wrestling. Apologies for the noise there. Yeah, so thanks to everyone for everything you contributed in the chat. Just a reminder that if you want to save that chat, if you're on a computer that you can, there are so many great recommendations in there. I couldn't even keep up with them. But we do have some post-session Q&A for those who want to hang around. So Michelle is asking, Janet, have you ever used a wire, a commando saw, to cut down very crowned old thick stems of beauty bush?
Not a commando saw, but I have used an electric chainsaw, one that's on a battery, and it's wonderful to have something like that. I've seen people use sawzalls, which I think are kind of like this, what you're saying right now. But I don't do that very often. Most of the time, most of the plants that I'm taking care of now are things I've taken care of for a while, and I don't have anything that thick that I have to cut back that hard. I want to hit save for us, Steve.
Yeah. Great. Sandy has a question about mulch. Says I used hardwood shredded mulch, and it brought in artillery fungus. Had to pay someone to take the mulch out. Is there a mulch that doesn't have the possibility of this enemy fungus?
I'm not, well, almost all mulches, when you put them on the soil and just leave them and water them, some fungus will emerge. And you'll get little mushrooms of one kind or another. Most of those fungi are not aggressive fungi. They're just working on dead material. Armillaria is not a good thing to have, but you normally don't get armillaria in mulch. It's not a very aggressive, it attacks wounded or dead things. So I don't worry too much about that. I've read about it in English literature quite a bit as an, oh no, watch out for it. But in 40 years, we haven't seen that very much. So I haven't had to deal with what you did, and I'm sorry that you had to take out all that mulch. I will say, though, that if you've had it in the garden and you're sure that it's armillaria, then you know you have armillaria. Mulch gone or not, the spores for that armillaria are there, and you just need to make sure your plants don't get weak so that you don't end up with a problem.
Great. We've got both Ruth and Michelle are curious about what is used to cut down miscanthus, the easiest way to get a big miscanthus out.
Well, I don't, first a caveat, I don't plant miscanthus for people anymore because it is such a pain in the springtime to cut down. I cut it down with loppers. We strap the plant first. We've shown this to you in our Get Ready Spring webinar, which is on, and you can take a look at, but we use bungee cords or a strong cord. We tie the bundle together first up toward the top, and then I use loppers to cut the bottom.
Yep, not shears.
Yeah, not my shears. Stephen, stop doing that. There is a thick blade brush trimmer that we have rented in some cases. It looks like a string trimmer, except that it's a little solid blade, kind of like Perils of Pauline at the sawmill, and you can use that. Art Cameron up at Michigan State, who planted, and I think he's an emeritus now, but I'm sure he's still involved, the grass collection at Michigan State, swears by that. And you can rent them. They're called brush trimmers. But do tie the stems together first, so that as you cut, it falls all as one and not as a zillion pieces.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we got lots more questions coming in. We might not be able to keep Janet and Steve in time to answer all of these questions.
I will do a chat transcript, though. It's just that it might not come out this week. And thank you, Sonia. You are such a wonderful moderator.
Oh my gosh.
Thank goodness you're here.
No, it's good. And I just wanted to say that for those looking to save the chat and are on iPads, I am sorry that they don't give that functionality, but we will see what we can do. It'll take a bit of time, but we'll glean out the great information and recommendations from the chat. It just might take a little time to get it out. Okay, another quick question about fertilizer. Catherine was asking, can I sprinkle hollytone under my white pine and hemlocks, or do I have to dig holes?
No, you do not have to dig holes. Put the slow release fertilizers on. It's the same thing as what nature is doing. The fertilizer in nature is insect excrement, mouse excrement, squirrel excrement, deer excrement, and nobody digs that in except the worms and the things that work on it. And that's the same thing that happens with your slow release organic fertilizers.
Great. And then just, I suppose, a quick one as we're starting to thaw out. Susan is saying the buds on my Lenten rose look like they froze. Should I take them off?
Yeah, if they froze, then take them off. They're just going to rot.
Yep.
Yeah. If they froze, make sure.
And similarly, Joanne says, my lawn looks like it's covered with spider weed. Now the snow is melted. What do you do?
That's called snow mold, and it is a problem on golf courses when things are covered as heavily as they were covered for a while because it was warm at the bottom of that snow, sometimes 30 degrees warmer. Once they're exposed for 2 or 3 days, generally that snow mold clears itself and doesn't do any extreme damage. If you have a very short bent grass lawn like they do on a golf course, it can be in trouble. But otherwise, it should probably just go away on its own as the soil drains.
Golf courses out west where they get heavy snow, they actually snow blow off the greens.
Right, and some places cover the greens before winter.
Yep.
With like these canvas tarps. But yeah, snow mold, and you can look up online snow mold, and it'll. The bottom line is, don't worry too much in a residential grass.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks to everyone. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. I also got a private message from Luann about we have burned our grasses. It's easy and fast. Maybe one day we will tell you the story of us burning our grasses.
Yes.
That's a teaser for some other webinar, though. It's a good story. All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and we'll see you next week for versatile viburnums. And coming up after that are gardening and allergies and the easiest best perennials.
Yep.
If you're already subscribing, you're fine through the end of April. But if you're new to us, please take advantage of our discount, which ends tomorrow, and sign up. Just send us an email that say you're signing up, and we'll put you on. We need to get our administration work done for subscriptions before the spring takes us away.
Yep.
Yep. So, thank you all, and make your gardens easier. See you later.
Goodbye. Ta-ta for now.